Brick by brick, this mansion was built to keep the living out and the dead in. Within its walls, secrets breathe and shadows speak. Welcome to Haunted Mansion Stories. Every mansion has secrets. This one whispers them in the dark. Listen to the secrets only if you dare.
Lily had always been a curious child, braver than most. She loved wandering the creaking hallways of her family's old house, running her hands along the cracked wallpaper and peeking into dusty corners. But after moving in, the house felt different. Heavier. As though it was watching her. That night, she couldn't sleep. The moonlight spilled pale and cold across her bedroom floor. And then she heard it, soft at first, almost like a sigh. The vent in the corner of her room rattled gently, carrying with it a whisper. Lily. Her breath caught. She sat up in bed, her heart thudding in her chest. The whisper came again, fragile but clear. Help us. The sound slid through the air, curling around her name like smoke. Lily wanted to hide beneath her blankets, to shut it out, but something inside her pulled her closer. She crept toward the vent, knees trembling, and pressed her ear to the cold metal. We are trapped. Her whisper barely left her lips. What do you mean? The vent exhaled a chorus of voices, tangled and frantic, a rush of sound that made her skin crawl. Help us escape, Lily. She staggered back, fear clawing up her spine, but curiosity burned hotter. Trapped. Escape. The vent ran to the basement. Her parents had warned her never to go there. But warnings mean little to the restless and the brave. The stairs groaned as she crept downward, flashlight trembling in her hand. At the basement door, the smell hit her first, damp stone, mildew, and something faintly sour. She forced the door open, and darkness swallowed her whole. The whispers returned, louder now, all around her, crawling along the walls. This way, follow our voices. Her beam of light trembled across peeling paint, rusted shelves, and finally landed on something waiting in the corner. An old wooden box. The whispers shrieked inside her skull. Open it, Lily. You must free us. Her hand shook as she reached out. The wood was soft with rot, cobwebs clinging to her skin. With a shallow breath, she pried it open. Inside lay a single doll. Small. Tattered. Eyes too glassy, too human. Its cracked porcelain face seemed wet in the flashlight's glow, as though it had been crying. We need to be free. The voices were no longer behind the vent. They were here. In the room. In the doll. Lily stumbled back, dropping the flashlight. For one heart-stopping moment, the beam tilted upward, catching the doll's face. Its mouth had moved. She bolted up the stairs, slamming the door behind her, the wood rattling as though something pressed against it from the other side. She collapsed onto her bed, pulling the covers to her chin. Silence. And then, just before she drifted into uneasy sleep, a soft whisper pressed against her ear, warm and wrong. We are closer now, Lily. Lily barely slept that night. Even with the covers pulled tight around her face, she felt the whispers pressing against her skin, brushing her ears as if the voices were right beside her. When the sun rose, the silence seemed almost cruel. All day, she tried to shake it off. At breakfast, she watched her parents chat about work, laughing softly over their coffee, oblivious to the restless thing gnawing at her thoughts. She wanted to tell them. She opened her mouth once, but when her father glanced up, she froze. What would she even say? I found a doll in the basement, and now something's whispering my name. They'd never believe her. By evening, she'd almost convinced herself it was just a dream. Almost. But when she went to her room after dinner, her heart stopped cold. The doll was sitting on her dresser. The same doll she had left inside the basement box. Its cracked porcelain face stared at her, its faded dress clinging to a frail body, head tilted slightly like it was listening. Lily's breath hitched. She backed against the wall, trembling. No, no, I left you downstairs. The room answered in whispers. Dozens of them. Some high-pitched, like children. Some raspy, like old men. They swirled around her name. Lily. Lily. Closer now, Lily. She grabbed the doll and ran to the basement door, throwing it inside as hard as she could. The sound of porcelain hitting the concrete echoed sharp and cruel. She slammed the door shut, locking it this time, her chest heaving. That night, she kept her lamp on, watching the shadows stretch across her walls. Every creak of the old house made her flinch. She pulled the blankets tighter, whispering to herself, "It's just a doll. Just a stupid doll." But sometime past midnight, the lamp flickered, then died. The whispers returned, louder than before. Her body froze, too heavy to move. She heard something soft, like tiny footsteps, padding across her floorboards. Slowly, painfully, she turned her head. The doll was sitting on her desk. Its cracked mouth had stretched into something resembling a smile. Lily tried to scream, but a cold hand clamped around her throat. Except when she touched it, there was nothing there. Only air. Only the pressure of something invisible, something unseen. The doll's glassy eyes glittered in the pale moonlight. And then, for the first time, it spoke aloud. Not in a whisper. Not in many voices. But in one. Clear. Cold. You let us out. Now we are with you. The doll slid from the desk, landing soundlessly on the floor. Its head twitched unnaturally as it began to crawl toward her bed. Lily scrambled backward, choking on her breath. She pressed herself against the headboard, tears stinging her eyes. The whispers screamed now, a chorus rattling through her skull. Her vision blurred as she clamped her hands over her ears, but it was useless. The voices weren't outside anymore. They were inside her. And just before she fainted from terror, she felt something tiny and porcelain cold place itself on her chest. When she opened her eyes at dawn, the doll was sitting there, perfectly still, watching. The morning after was worse than the night itself. Lily sat at the breakfast table, her hands trembling around a spoonful of cereal she couldn't bring herself to eat. Her parents laughed over the newspaper, the sound bright and ordinary. But all Lily could hear was the echo of whispers, faint but constant, lingering in her ears like an infection. Every few seconds, her gaze drifted to the basement door down the hall. She swore she'd locked it. Yet part of her feared it would swing open at any moment, and the doll would crawl out, glassy-eyed and grinning. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" her mother asked, frowning. "I'm fine," Lily lied, forcing a smile. But she wasn't fine. That afternoon, she decided to explore the house, not because she wanted to, but because she felt she had to. The whispers hadn't stopped, they had only grown quieter, as if waiting. Listening. Watching. She started in the attic. It was a place she rarely went, too dusty and cramped. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and mothballs, and the floorboards groaned beneath her feet. Sunlight filtered in through a tiny window, illuminating floating dust motes like falling snow. Her flashlight beam fell across old trunks, boxes of yellowed newspapers, and crooked stacks of books. But it was the corner that caught her attention, an old chest, its leather straps cracked and brittle. Something about it felt wrong. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside were photographs. Black and white portraits of a family she didn't recognize, a stern-looking father, a pale mother, and 3 children. The children's eyes were off. Their smiles too wide, their stares too hollow. She flipped the photo over. Scribbled in faint handwriting was a date, 1934. And beneath that, "Our darlings. May they rest in peace." Lily's breath caught. She dug deeper into the chest. Old letters tied with string, the paper brittle with age. She untied one and unfolded it carefully. The ink had faded, but the words were still legible. We cannot keep them contained much longer. The box is the only thing that holds them. Do not open it. For God's sake, do not let them out, they are hungry. Her hands shook as she dropped the letter back into the chest. The whispers stirred immediately, curling through her mind like smoke. Lily. Her flashlight flickered. She spun around. Nothing there. Just shadows, thick and waiting. She shoved the lid closed and stumbled backward, her heart pounding. But as she turned to leave the attic, she froze. There, at the top of the stairs, sat the doll. Its porcelain head tilted, its glass eyes fixed on her. And this time, it wasn't alone. For a split second, just behind it, Lily thought she saw 3 pale children standing in the shadows, their mouths stretched too wide, their eyes black and empty. When she blinked, they were gone. Only the doll remained. Her body shook as she fled down the stairs, nearly tripping in her haste. She slammed her bedroom door, pressing her back against it, sobbing. The whispers rose again, triumphant. You opened the box, Lily, and now you are part of us. Lily stopped sleeping. Every night, the whispers grew louder, bleeding into her dreams until she could no longer tell if she was awake or asleep. Sometimes she woke with her lamp still on, her eyes dry and burning. Other times she woke in complete darkness, her blankets pulled from the bed, her feet bare and cold against the wooden floor, as if she had been standing there for hours without realizing it. And always, the doll was there. On the dresser. On the windowsill. Once, even perched on her pillow, glass eyes only inches from her own. She had thrown it into the basement. She had locked the door. She had begged her parents to believe her. But no matter what she did, it came back. Her mother began to notice the changes. Lily, you've got to eat something, she said one morning, her brow furrowed. You're so pale, sweetheart. Lily didn't answer. Her spoon moved slowly in her cereal, stirring the milk until it turned grey. Her father tried to joke. Our girl looks like she's seen a ghost. Lily's lips twitched into a smile. But the smile wasn't hers. That night, she woke to find her reflection moving in the mirror across the room. Her body lay frozen in bed, but the reflection tilted its head, the same way the doll always did. Its mouth stretched into a too-wide grin. Then, slowly, it lifted a pale, porcelain hand. Lily's chest tightened. Her throat closed as though unseen fingers were pressing down. The whispers filled the room, now so loud they roared inside her skull. Let us in, Lily, we only need one more step. She gasped, trying to scream, but the sound died in her throat. Her own hand rose, stiff and unnatural, moving without her. It hovered above her chest, fingers curled like claws. And then she heard it, tiny footsteps scuttling across the floorboards. The doll was climbing onto her bed. Its cracked face gleamed in the pale moonlight, the porcelain lips trembling as it whispered in her own voice. Don't fight it. You belong to us now. Her vision went black. When she woke, sunlight streamed through the curtains. For a moment, she thought it had been a nightmare. But then she saw her arm. Scratches covered her skin, deep red lines carved into her flesh as though she'd been clawing at herself in her sleep. Her fingernails were stained with blood. At school that day, her teacher asked if everything was all right. Lily just smiled. The same smile from the mirror. Too wide. Too sharp. That night, the whispers didn't just surround her, they spoke through her. She caught herself mumbling words she didn't understand, her voice layered with the tones of dozens of others. By the third night, her parents stood outside her door, whispering nervously to one another. She talks to herself, her mother whispered. She doesn't eat, she doesn't sleep, something's wrong with her. Inside the room, Lily sat cross-legged on her bed, the doll resting neatly in her lap. She stroked its matted hair with steady, trembling hands. "They don't understand," she whispered to it. And the doll answered, this time in the voice of a child. "They never will." "But we do." The lamp flickered. Shadows stretched long across the walls, twisting into small, thin figures. Pale children with hollow eyes, their mouths moving soundlessly. One by one, they turned their heads toward Lily. And in that moment, she realized something terrible. The voices weren't trying to escape anymore. They were already inside. The house no longer felt like home. Every hallway groaned with unseen weight. Every shadow stretched too long. The air itself seemed thicker, carrying faint whispers that never stopped. Lily had stopped speaking to her parents. Sometimes she barely looked at them at all. They grew frightened of her. At dinner, she sat silent, staring at her untouched food until her father snapped. "Enough, Lily. Whatever this game is, it ends tonight." But Lily only tilted her head. Slowly. Like the doll. Her lips curled into that unnatural smile. "It's not a game," she whispered. "It's a promise." That night, the house awakened. The whispers weren't whispers anymore, they were screams. Children crying, laughing, begging. Doors slammed by themselves, windows rattled, lights flickered until the bulbs burst. Her parents tried to run, but the basement door creaked open on its own, spilling a wave of cold air through the house. From the blackness below came a sound like hundreds of tiny hands scraping against the concrete. Lily stood at the top of the stairs, the doll clutched tight in her arms. "They want me," she said softly. "They've always wanted me." Her mother cried out, "Lily, please don't go down there." But Lily was already descending, barefoot on the cold steps. The whispers roared in triumph. The basement was alive with movement. Shadows writhed across the walls, pale figures emerging from the dark. Dozens of children, their faces hollow, their mouths stretched wide as they wailed in one voice. "You opened the box. Now you are ours." In the center of the room, the wooden box lay open once more, but it was no longer empty. Inside, tangled in cobwebs and dust, were tiny skeletal remains. Small bones. Shards of porcelain mixed with them, as if dolls and children had fused into one. The doll in Lily's arms twitched. Its head snapped back, jaw stretching until it cracked. The voices poured from its mouth like smoke. "Stay with us, Lily. Forever." Her parents tried to drag her back, but the shadows swarmed them, pulling them to the floor. The air filled with shrieks, laughter, and the sound of nails scratching wood. Lily stepped forward, eyes glassy, face blank. She lowered herself into the box. The children's shadows crowded around her, clawing, pulling, wrapping her in darkness. The doll fell from her hands, its porcelain face shattering against the floor. For one heartbeat, the whispers went silent. Then, from inside the box, a small voice whispered, "Closer now." When the basement door finally slammed shut, the house grew quiet again. Her parents searched for her. They tore through the basement, screaming her name. But there was no sign of Lily. Only the shattered doll. And the old wooden box, sealed tight once more. The next morning, her room was exactly as she'd left it. Except for one detail. On her pillow, where her head once rested, sat a brand new doll. Its porcelain face perfect. Untouched. And its glass eyes gleamed with something alive. The park didn't feel like a park anymore. The benches, the trees, even the cracked pavement, it all felt like stage scenery, flimsy backdrops painted over the real world. I could almost feel the watcher's eyes pressing through the night, waiting for me to make a move. My phone buzzed in my hand, the glow pulsing like a heartbeat. Rule 11. A new path has opened. Make your own rule. Survive by your law, not ours. The words twisted inside me. I wasn't just prey anymore. I could fight back if I understood how. I whispered to myself, what rule do I make? My voice sounded too loud in the silence, as though the world itself had leaned in to listen. The hunter crouched at the edge of the clearing, its grin sharp, its body trembling as if eager to pounce the second I chose wrong. Then I heard it. A rasping breath behind me. I spun around, knife raised. A figure stood in the shadows, thin and broken, clutching its envelope to its chest. Not the man from before. This one was different, a woman, her eyes sunken, her lips cracked as though every word cost her something. You're thinking about it, aren't you? She rasped. My heart hammered. Who are you? Her voice cracked with something between laughter and pain. A player. Like you. I thought I was clever. I thought I could twist the game. And I almost did. She stepped closer, and I saw the scars carved into her skin. Words. Rules. Dozens of them, etched into her flesh in jagged lines. What happened? I asked, my throat dry. I made my own rules, she whispered. One after another. The hunter can't cross water. The hunter can't climb stairs. The hunter can't see me if I don't move. Her smile split too wide, desperate, cracked. But the watchers twisted them. They always twist them. My rules became cages. Every one of them made the game smaller, tighter, until I couldn't move at all. She lifted her arm, showing me where fresh words still burned into her skin. I cannot leave this place. Her hollow eyes bored into mine. Don't write carelessly, girl. Whatever you make, you live by it too. Before I could speak, her body convulsed, twisting unnaturally. Black smoke leaked from her mouth, and with a final shudder she was gone, ripped back into the shadows. Only her envelope remained, crumpled on the ground. I didn't want to touch it, but I did. Inside was a single sheet of paper, smeared with blood. 3 words, scratched into the page. Make one rule. My phone buzzed again, as if in response. Dawn bends to those who dare. Choose wisely. The hunter moved closer, claws dragging across the pavement, its grin twitching wider. The air rippled, heavy with anticipation. This was it. My chance to change everything. But the warning clawed at me. If I made the wrong rule, I'd trap myself the way she had. I raised the knife, my hand trembling. My voice came out raw, but strong enough for the shadows to hear. I make a rule. The hunter stopped, frozen mid-step. Even the night held its breath. You cannot enter the light. The words left me like a wound torn open, bleeding power. My phone went black, then flared white-hot, the words burning across the screen. New rule accepted. Streetlights flickered violently. Every bulb in the park sputtered to life, beams of pale yellow cutting through the dark. The hunter shrieked, its body dissolving where the light touched it, smoke pouring off its skin. It staggered back, clawing at the air, its grin warping into something furious and feral. For the first time, I wasn't just running. I wasn't just surviving. I was fighting back. But as the hunter melted into the shadows, a new message carved itself across my screen. Rule 12. The light is yours now. But the watchers will not forgive theft. And in the distance, I heard it, a low rumble, like thunder rolling across the earth. Not the hunter. Something bigger. Something coming. The game had changed. The house had been silent for weeks. Dust layered the windows, and vines curled hungrily along the siding. The holloways had vanished, and with them, the cries and arguments that once filled the halls. Neighbors avoided even walking past. Children dared one another to run up the porch steps and knock on the door, but none ever stayed long enough to finish the dare. Still, the house waited. One late afternoon, a heavy rain swept through the neighborhood. The storm rattled the shutters and sent water pouring down the gutters in thick streams. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the empty rooms inside. For the briefest instant, if one looked closely, they would swear they saw shadows moving across the upstairs window, too tall to be children, too still to be human. By nightfall, the storm had passed. And the box in the basement stirred. Its lid creaked open, slow as breath. From the darkness within, something small crawled out. Not a child. Not quite the doll. Something between. The whispers had merged. 3 weeks later, the Henderson family moved in. They didn't know the house's history. They didn't ask. All they knew was that it was cheap, spacious, and close to the father's new job. Their youngest, a boy named Caleb, took to exploring immediately. The creaking stairs and dusty corners didn't frighten him, they thrilled him. He thought of the house as a castle, and himself a brave knight. On his second night, he found the gift. It was sitting neatly on his windowsill when he woke. A porcelain doll, perfect and untouched, wearing a faded dress stitched with tiny flowers. Its glass eyes gleamed faintly in the moonlight, catching his attention. Caleb climbed out of bed, yawning. "Where did you come from?" he asked, lifting it gently. The doll's head tilted in his hands. A crack ran faintly across its cheek, like a scar. He turned it over, searching for a tag or maker's mark, but found none. Just cold porcelain. He set it on his bedside table and crawled back into bed. The storm outside had left the house smelling damp, and the sound of dripping water echoed through the walls. Caleb closed his eyes. That was when he heard it. Caleb. He sat up quickly. His brother wasn't in the room. His parents were asleep down the hall. The house was dead silent. Then the voice came again, soft and trembling. "Caleb, play with us." His eyes darted to the doll. It hadn't moved. Not even a little. He pulled the blanket over his head, heart hammering, but curiosity won in the end. Carefully, he peeked out again. The doll was gone. He looked around frantically, his small hands clutching the blanket. And then, slowly, from under the bed, something began to crawl out. The doll. Its glass eyes caught the faint glow of moonlight, and its mouth, its painted, porcelain mouth, shifted ever so slightly. "Don't be afraid," it whispered. "We just want to play." That night, Caleb's mother woke to the sound of footsteps above her bed. She checked the clock, 3:13 a.m. Frowning, she slipped from the sheets and padded down the hall to Caleb's room. The door was half open. Inside, her son sat cross-legged on the floor, the doll in front of him. His lips moved silently, whispering in rhythm with the doll's faint, rasping voice. "Sweetheart," she said, stepping into the room. Caleb's head snapped toward her. But it wasn't Caleb's face that looked back. His eyes were wide, black as tar. His mouth stretched too far, too wrong. When he spoke, dozens of voices spilled out all at once. She opened the box. "Now we are free." The doll's head turned sharply, fixing its glassy stare on the mother. The faintest of cracks spread across its cheek, splitting into a smile. And just like that, the whispers began again, rising, surrounding, consuming the house in a chorus of hungry voices.
Leave now, but beware. The mansion remembers those who enter, and it will call you back. You've walked the halls, heard the voices, and felt the chill. The story ends for now, but don't forget to like and subscribe because the mansion waits. Always.